bottle.
That's farmer friend, singer-songwriter Lyal Strickland.
And that's farmer friend and jack of all trades Chris Horn.
And we're Those Tastebud Guys. Hey guys, welcome to this side of the studio. So, as I've probably said before, we're behind the camera now, where we once wasn't. So, as we promised, we're going to have a little chat about IPAs and what they are and they aren't, and maybe talk some of the myths.
It sounds like a dad talk. We're going to have a chat,
We're going to have
son,
a chat,
about
guys.
IPAs.
We're going to set you straight. If we knew what we was talking about, anyhow. In case that high-quality HD don't tell, there's a computer screen right here that I'm going to be reading off of because I don't know what I'm talking about either.
Yeah.
As we said, we're kind of going to learn this together, so...
Yeah, so we just had the Goose Island IPA.
Yeah, which you're still drinking, right?
I'm nursing it because I like it so much. Tasty.
This is the same thing. Damn, I picked the wrong one.
Oh, good. I'm almost done. We'll switch.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That sounds like a great idea, actually. This one's pretty...
So what are you drinking right now?
So I actually grabbed from Four Hands Brewing the Incarnation IPA. It's a 7%, I believe is what. Yep, 7%. Obviously, I didn't have time to look up what IBUs it was. I'm going to guess it's roughly the same as that. It's still kind of got that same styling. I was hoping it was more of an East Coast or something a little more floral, but it's not. It's pretty...
I think you'll like that Sierra Nevada. We're going to get to that in a second.
I think...
So
I've had the Sierra. It actually is good.
Yeah.
This tastes and smells like someone ground up a cedar tree and run it through a coffee machine.
Near and dear.
Mm-hmm.
Near and dear. So, IPAs. Let's start on this because...
All right. So what we want to talk about is IPAs
tonight.
tonight.
Why we didn't do this behind the bar is that it gets into a rabbit hole.
It's a big topic.
It's a huge topic.
This is literally just beers that I either grabbed off the shelf behind us that we've already drank or ones we had tonight that was donated by a viewer.
And what I think is so alluring about IPAs, at least to me, is that they're almost every one, I feel like, is so individual. They're characters.
They are
very different.
Yeah, they are.
Where if you're drinking like an American lager or a Pilsner or a Kolsch, those are all like, oh, that's going to be a very
defined flavor.
Light, easy drinking beer. If you're drinking a Shandy or a Radler, that's going to be a very defined, like fruity, sweet, maybe sour beer.
Yeah, I agree. I think at the end of the day, your two big ones are your stouts and your IPAs. That's where your biggest flavors are at.
And also where your biggest fights come from.
True. Well, we're not going to fight about anything. We both know where we stand and we know what we like, and both of us will give and take as we go. And hopefully...
we're in my territory now.
Yeah, true. You throw me out, so...
Yeah.
Like I say, as you can see, there's a lot of beers here in front of us. They're all made by different people. We've got Stone, New Belgium, Dogfish Head, Goose Island, I forgot who this one, Odell, Sierra Nevada, Four Hands, and who was last one? Oscar Blues.
Yeah.
Again, that's just what we had in here.
Yeah.
That's not even counting what was ever in the Bombers or I'm sorry, not the Bombers, what do you call them things? Growlers. And so anyhow, IPA, huge topic. So what is an IPA? What's it stand for?
It's an Indian Pale Ale. India Pale Ale. And not Indian. This we may have already had a few of those.
And some whiskey.
Yeah. But yeah, so
that's coming, guys.
So I get really hung up on stories of things, right? And so it's like I drank PBR for a long time because I read a story about why they called it Pabst Blue Ribbon, which is a fantastic story. You should go check it out. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to ruin the surprise. But one of the reasons
we going to do PBR on here one day?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, that'd be great.
They just had a big thing where they
weren't
sure if they were going to be able to make it, and I think they found a deal where they're going to still brew it.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
But
we need to do hams, and I don't only want to get too sidetracked, but we have lots of ham stuff you guys see behind. Even these Lyals come up with these things, and it's a cool decoration. We might as well do the beer.
Yeah, it's a good backyard beer.
I think so.
Burger beer. But so I get hung up on the stories of beers, right? And
let's start with the myths of beers. So yeah.
No, I want to call it a story. I'm still convinced in my mind that this is true.
All right.
Because I want to believe it, and therefore, and today in America we can believe things if we want to, regardless of objective facts. So, the story that I was told years ago when I was in college is that when India was occupied by Britain and they shipped their beer over there, that by the time it got over there, it was bad. It didn't taste good, and so they added a ton of hops to flavor the beer to make it taste better by the time it reached all the way to India, and then that's why they called it an India Pale Ale. That's the story that I heard.
The same story,
Yeah.
and I love the story.
It's a great story.
It apparently is not true.
It's the absolute truth.
According to... I've repeated that story several times, and I did not know the difference.
Don't you feel like an ass now? Because I've told that story for like 10 years.
Walk around acting like you know what you're talking about, and you ain't got a clue.
Always get you in trouble.
Anyways. So, anyhow, according to this little website I got, that's actually myth number 3. So... apparently, the hops having anything to do with it rotting had nothing to do with it rotting or it's getting sour. They put the hops in it because it was going to a hotter climate, and they knew that to make it taste good and be a good drinking beer, it had to have hops in it. For that, had nothing to do with India specifically. The other myths about it was that it was made by. I got to look at this guy's name because I keep forgetting. It was named by a man named George Hodson from Bow, East London. Apparently, this is very highly contested information.
I think you said Hobson earlier.
I might have. Hodgson is what I think it said.
I just thought it was funny. You call him Hobson.
Hobson?
Hobson.
Hog Hobsons. Anyway, so apparently he was the guy that's credited for inventing the IPA. But it's contested because that information didn't come on until like 40 years after, and there's plenty of information saying that IPAs and hops was added to all the the beers leaving then for at least a good 30 years before he come along and was credited for that. So probably not. My guess is that...
That's a poor move.
That was a big one, dude.
Mm-hmm.
My guess is that probably, from what very little research that I've done, is this boils down to a lot of marketing and myths, and more than likely IPAs came along because Mr. Hodgson happened to have a brewery right on the docks in London next to the shipping yards.
That's a good location.
So it's very easy for him to get his beer out, which is why he was credited for being one of the main distributors, much like someone saying Budweiser is the reason we have beer today. It's because he was big. The other thing I read is he also liked to extend lines of credit. Yes, please.
You're gonna like this better.
He liked to extend lines of credit out to all the captains and the sailors for like 12 or 18 months while they did their tour and come back, and then would take their money. Therefore, his beer was widely available and very popular. And if you saturate your market with your beer, you are going to be the last man standing. I think that's probably why he's credited with that, in my opinion.
And that's never been done before, afterwards, right? Like beer companies never saturated the market with...
They've never bought out every competitor and saturated the market. I'm not looking at anyone in particular. Anyways, so the IPA thing, regardless of where it came from, the reality is it probably has nothing to do with today's beers anyways. It's largely marketing. We have what we call East Coast, West Coast, New England style.
And here in Missouri, we have several breweries that make a mid-coast.
Mid-coast, yeah.
Which is just...
We're 10.5 hours from the ocean at the closest point from here. So that's probably not real.
A lot of it's marketing, but there are some kind of loosely defined styles, right? Regionally. West Coast.
Oh my gosh, that's so much better.
Right? I knew you'd like that one.
Yeah, thank you.
So, West Coast is generally going to be, what, more citrusy?
Well, two other quick myths about IPA is that they're... Well, this ties in what you're trying to say, is that they're super bitter.
Yeah, yeah.
Some of them are.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're super high ABV. Some of them are.
Yeah. That's my market.
But it's not. That's not the reality of it. There is stuff like the session session IPAs.
Yep.
That are typically very low.
4 or 5%.
Yeah,
right?
they're usually under 5%.
Yeah.
And then there's the what do you call them? Imperial IPAs and double hopped and things like that, where they've been hopped up, but then had a lot of malt added back to them.
Yeah.
Which oddly enough, double IPAs is some of my favorite.
Which makes a lot of sense. So I was at a bar not too long ago, and I was really fascinated because a lot of times you go to a beer bar and the two things they have listed on the menus are going to be ABV and IBU, right? Your ABV essentially just tells you like how drunk you're going to get and how fast. I think is a layman's way to describe that.
I agree with you.
And an IBU is going to be, how awful your face looks after you drink it. And but so I was at this bar, and they had the ABV, but they didn't have IBUs. They just literally had like little like icon like clip art things of hops, and they'd like go over like a scale 1 to 5.
I've been to that bar.
And so I'd ask
I think it's what you're talking about.
Time Timber.
Yep.
So in Springfield, Missouri, if you ever around there, check them out.
Check them out.
But I asked them,
they like hops.
They do. Well, I asked them, I said, is that the IBU rating? And he goes, well, kinda. He goes, it's perceived hops, right? Because a lot of times people think of hops and IBUs like simultaneously. It's the same thing. And he goes, we have a lot of really hoppy beers, but we balance them out with the malts, right? And so the more malt you have, it kind of balances out that hoppy flavor. So it may have a high IBU, but not necessarily be super hoppy. I don't know. It's a weird mixture.
Well, that's kind of what I've read today. It's along the lines same what they've said is the triple hop, double hop. They add the malts to it to bring down that bitterness.
Yeah.
Which falls in line with what you're saying. And I didn't realize at the time, because I know we've had several double IPAs at the time, and I turned my nose. I know when you set them on the table, I went, oh my God. But really, really enjoyed them.
See, I think if you don't like the bitterness quotient,
that's what it is. It's not the IPA I don't like, it's the bitterness.
If you don't like the bitterness quotient of an IPA, I would generally say shoot for something at least 7% and above, because I think as a general rule, the higher the ABV, usually the bitterness quotient goes down.
Well, again, there's several styles, and I'm going to read them off here. There's dry hopped, double dry hopped, triple dry hopped, single hopped, fresh hopped. There's a lot of different ways they can put the flavor in here. And what they're doing when they're, as I understand this, again, we are not brewers. We've asked a few questions.
we know some brewers who are...
We know some brewers.
They are cringing right now.
They look at us and go, what? You guys don't know? Yes. Sorry, guys. You come on the show, you can tell your side of the story. Other than that, we're getting our side out. Make their own show is what they can do.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but in all seriousness, so when they add the hops in the first time, it is part of the brewing process. It's part of the making the beer. When they put it in the second time, they're literally adding just aroma and flavor. And they put it in, everything's already done, the beer's already made, they're putting it in there, they're just adding the flavor in afterwards, and that's giving it that heavy nose.
And what's that called, the process?
That's dry hopping.
Dry hopping, okay.
Hopping.
Okay,
that's not what I thought you said.
It may not be. I can't hear myself anymore. I may have had too many hops.
Hops will not get you drunk.
Oh, it's just the rest of it?
Yeah, it's the rest of it. So
there's, what do you say, there's New England style?
New England style, which typically tends to be the most bitter, I think. I really struggle with getting this straight. Then East Coast style, then West Coast style, then East Coast style. And I thought it was the West Coast style IPAs that I really liked, when I think it's the East Coast style IPAs that I really like.
See, you bring up an interesting point.
Beer like Stone.
Yeah.
This is, in my opinion, a fantastic, right up my alley kind of IPA.
And that's an East Coast, right?
I think so.
So this is what's always messed me up, is that like people say like, oh, this is...
But East I don't think they're in New York. I think this is the one in Oregon or California. Yeah, this one's in California.
Okay.
Yet Firestone's
also in California.
Nope, Firestone's in New York. I know, that's what I keep...
Sure?
Man, I think.
Do we have a Firestone up there?
No, I think they're
We've
over
got
behind
an
the counter.
Arrogant Bastard, right?
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Aren't they?
All right,
no,
so...
they're Stone, right? Yeah, they're Stone.
Oh, that's Stone Brewing. You're right. You're right. Anyways, there's a lot.
So here's what's always messed me up is that when someone says like, oh, it's an East Coast IPA, it's a West Coast IPA, but it comes from a brewery on the opposite end of the damn country, that the style they're brewing, it's really
it's mind-boggling. And I'm sure if we're to continue this show, and a year from now or a year and a half from now, we look back, we'll be like, you guys were morons back then.
Yeah. And
we'll learn this, and that's why we're dragging you guys along. We realized right about this point that there was so much more to know. And we want to get there. We want to understand it all.
So that's why we're doing these table episodes, is we give us a chance to actually look.
Yeah, this is going to go along a little longer than our normal episode, probably. We'll try to keep it down to around the 20-minute mark or something like that if we can.
If we can.
But it's a lot of talking. And if it's a little too long for you, then it might be one to put on for later in the day.
We're 16 minutes in. This one might be long. 16 minutes in.
We probably shouldn't have recorded this right after the other episode. And some drinks and some downloading and whatnot. So
it's all good.
Okay, but in all seriousness, there was a ridiculous amount of styles of IPAs, and I'm going to pull them up here right now. More than I ever knew. I've lost them. Well, maybe I'm not going to pull that list up. I thought I had it right here, but I don't.
Well, here's what I want to know. I want to know, because I love IPAs, but there are certainly IPAs that I have that I go, it's fine. It's not my favorite, right? For me personally, they tend to be very citrusy. They tend to be very light in color and taste, or at least like not light in that it doesn't have taste, but light in that it's airy and.
Now, see, I don't get the light airy out of it.
It doesn't like punch you in the gut. So,
you're talking about afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those are those are the two main things that I don't like. What I do like are very bitter IPAs. I like things that taste like dirt, very earthy. Like I want to taste it for like several seconds after I take a sip of it. So what do you like in an IPA, since you're not generally a fan of IPAs?
That is a good question.
Because if you don't like IPAs, trend towards whatever he's about to say.
Fair. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
I do like IPAs, but I only like about a third of them, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I was looking up for some of the subcategories, is what I was pecking away here at the keyboard for, because I had a list pulled up, I thought, and apparently I closed it out. I like what I think they consider East Coast IPAs, which tends to have a very floral note to them. When you sniff it, you're not going to get nothing but hops. You're going to have some hops, but once you kind of get over that initial bitter smell in the nose, you're going to have, I call it a floral smell. I think you actually called it earthy at one point, but it's definitely more fields and grains.
Yeah, it's not fruit and
flowers.
Citrus.
No, it's not fruit and citrus. It's definitely more fields and grains, and I think that's the malts. Yeah. And I think that's where I'm at with is the malts, and those that tend to be a little more balanced, I find to be incredibly refreshing.
And if you're looking for an IPA to try, and if you don't like IPAs, you're looking for a brewery to check out. You've had really good luck with Stone IPAs. Firestone as well. What else do you like?
Deschutes has an IPA I like, though. It's not, but it's not the traditional style I like. So I probably wouldn't recommend that one for anybody. I'm a fan of Deschutes all the way around, so I might maybe give them a little more berth.
Yeah. If you're looking for something to punch you in the gut,
Victory IPA. Victory has some that I really, really like.
Okay.
And a few of our locals make some good IPAs. So Mothers.
You like Mothers?
Not the Little Helper. Not the Little Helper. They have some that's a little less.
So there's one of our local breweries in Springfield, Missouri is Mother's Brewery. They make a fantastic amount of beer, good beer. They have a beer called Little Helper that if you do want something to punch you in the gut and you're like in the midsection of the country and get a hold of it, highly recommend it. I specifically bought it for years when I go over to Chris's house because I knew that if I bought a sixer and only drank 4 of them, I could come back in a month and then the other 2 would still be there. Untouched with dust on the bottle.
You're not lying about that.
But if you want something to punch you in the gut, Mother's Little Helper Boulevard now is pretty widely distributed.
That's a good one.
Out of Kansas City.
Double wide?
Single wide.
Single wide.
Double wide used to be their Imperial IPA. I'm not sure if they still make that or not. But,
well, and that's probably the one that I liked then.
Yeah. Let's see. Lagunitas is another big distributed one. That'll really punch in the gut.
Yeah,
It's
they're
tasty.
tough.
Goose is pretty. Goose Island is pretty punch in the gut. So check some of those out.
There's a few in Oklahoma City that I've had recently that I really actually enjoyed.
This is the thing of like, especially with a beer category that's so broad as stouts or IPAs. There's so many different ones, and they really honestly just depend on like the brewer and everyone that you try. So go, if you can, like go to a beer bar. Go to a bar with like a pretty decent selection and ask for a taster. Anyone can choke down 4 ounces of beer, right? Try.
Yeah. I mean, that's the nicest thing about it.
Try it, and boy, if you find something you like that you actually like, ask the bartender, what is this beer? What style is this beer? What makes this one so much better than all the other crap I've drank, right?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. There's no beer I do not want to try. I did find a list here of 10 styles of IPA. It's not the same one that I had. It's actually got a few different, which, again, guys, a lot of this is marketing. They're calling it something just to have a name.
Absolutely.
So, in the United States, West Coast and East Coast is largely
what's the old joke? Like how do you be at the top of your field? You have a very small field.
Okay. West Coast IPAs and East Coast IPAs are the 2 main beers. Yeah, that clinks better here than it does on each other. Session IPAs, which tend to be slightly lower in ABV.
Yeah.
But they usually are hopped up pretty bad. Fruit IPAs.
Yeah.
Which I'm not a big fan of those. There ain't been many fruits that I've found.
I'll tell you what. I've had some raspberry hopped IPAs that are pretty good, and citrus, like some lemon and orange.
Yeah, I've had a few of the citrus ones. It's not too bad. Imperial or double IPAs, which I do tend to like. Wet hop IPA. The examples they give,
Read that
I
wet hop
don't
thing
know.
because I've had a few. Do you remember what was it? Something like Last Splash or something from Boulevard. I think Mother's made one too. There was a wet hopped ale, and it was like, man, I don't know how to describe it, but those things, it tasted so good. I had no willpower. They just went down like I was.
Well, wet
dying of
hopping
thirst.
is so typically when you get hops,
Yeah.
they come in a pellet form.
Yeah.
So they're dried out, they're stored, they're bagged, and then you buy them and mix them in. What wet hopping is during that time of the season when they go the harvest, your IP or your hops are trucked in basically direct from field right to brewery.
Fresh. Yeah.
They're fresh. That's wet hopping.
Okay.
So, wood aged IPA. I've never had that, but that sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
Black IPA, I have had, and to be honest with you, I've never had one that I liked yet. Because my expectation is it should taste like chocolate, and it's not there because I want a stout. Coffee IPA, some of them have been very good.
You're going to want to drink that pretty quick.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. All right, Eclectic IPA, don't know what that even is. And then there was some others on the other website that again, I think it boils down to marketing. So
A lot of it is marketing, and as always, what it really is what you like, right? So
Yeah.
find something you like and stick to it and search out other beers in that category that fit that same profile. he's going to try and gulp this down, and here's why. We're going to try this one, I think, to end this off. This is an Oscar Blues IPA that I'm pouring all over the table. That's why we're ending it. That's why we're ending it quick.
We recognize that we are drunk. Maybe.
One of us. No, so this was brewed to celebrate the legalization of recreational marijuana in Colorado.
Correct.
And it's supposed to...
I say that like I know this. I just heard this story, so I'm assuming that's correct.
It's supposed to have kind of the flavor of cannabis, I guess. Not that I would know what that tastes like. It smells like. No, surely not.
No,
a little bit.
I don't smell it in the can, but anyhow, maybe we'll have a different beer review on that one some other day. So
that's pretty good.
So they're calling this a throwback IPA.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's a. I don't know. Ultimately, I guess the takeaway from this is don't be scared of them. Don't be scared of any beer. Just try it. Sampling is a great way if you can get to the breweries. Most of these guys, honestly, they're probably not even going to charge you for a sampler. But even if you pay for a sample, you're usually talking $8 to $12 for 4 to 6 4-ounce samples, sometimes 2-ounce samplers, depending where you're at. If you're sampling some of their barrel-aged stuff and there's limited releases, it might be a little more. Almost always worth it. Try to go out there, try to get some in your paws and see what the heck it tastes like. Because, man, I mean, you're missing out if you don't. Don't be afraid to try the IPAs.
No, never stay away from a beer style just because you don't like it. Unless it's something you've already had before. But always try something new.
Your timing on that was terrible. I was trying to get that down. So
I was just to say, what are you trying? Give that a shot. I think you'll actually like this one.
I'm going to pour this. We're going to toast this out. And we've been about 27 minutes, something like that, before this gets edited down. So I'm assuming we've went long enough. If you're still with us, thank you very much for sitting and watching us. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Yeah. If you're not, we'll catch you behind the bar next episode.
Absolutely. Until next time,
try something new. I don't know, man. We'll be able to